Peeling away your limitations using NLP. Stay tuned. This is Damon from NLP Gym, and I'm here once again with Mark Andreas. And we just wrapped a day of core transformation, and we got 2 more days left, and I think it went pretty well today. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it went great.
Yeah.
It's a great day.
It went really well for me because I got to be one of the demonstration subjects. And but before we get into that, if you haven't already, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. Before we get into the demo that you did with me today, would you just explain what you just told me about what your mother had written an article about in NLP?
Sure, yeah. She was talking about some of the core transformation in some ways works in a bit of a more fundamentally different level than a lot of the NLP techniques. And in a sense, it's really about, rather than bringing in a new, creating a new part of myself or bringing in a new resource in a way to solve a problem, it's more about allowing our layers that we've created to solve problems, but then gives us a certain tightness or certain other limitations, allowing those layers to come away so that our true self can sort of just be there.
And you use the metaphor of like healing where you put a cast on, but then in a sense the cast then becomes sort of like a limitation, and then you can remove the cast. Exactly.
So like a cast is a useful thing for the process of healing, but there's a certain point you don't want that cast on there anymore. And so in a lot of ways, core transformation is about allowing the cast to come off in a way that you can then have full functionality again.
And it's interesting that you use that metaphor because I've had that experience of NLP where something that helped me a lot at one point, a year or 2 later, it's actually now holding me back because I'm continuing to progress and I need to sort of update the belief, like even really useful beliefs that have helped us break through a limitation. Sometimes in a few years they actually become a limiting belief rather than a belief that empowers you.
Another example is somebody who came to the training who came feeling a lack of self-worth, and he expected to leave the training feeling a sense of worthiness. And he actually got to a sense of feeling just a sense of okayness. There wasn't that counterpolarity that was even necessary. He just felt like just totally okay.
It wasn't even a question of self-worth.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's exactly what your dad sent me to read in his book, and I did a video on that a few days ago, or actually last week, and it was like, it's not even a question of self-worth, but if you're constantly caught between that polarity, then it's constantly a question of am I worthy or am I not worthy?
Right.
And it's about going even deeper and getting rid of that question altogether.
Exactly.
Which brings me to the demo that you did with me today, and so I can explain a little bit about what I experienced, but I wanted to say, what the hell did you do to me? Because that was really intense, really intense. So from your perspective, what happened there? What did you do?
Well, it would take longer to explain the full process because there's a lot to the process, but in a nutshell, it's about accessing the unconscious part of us that perhaps, often at a younger age sort of splits off in with some sort of behavior or mode to solve some problem, kind of like the cast. It probably worked to a certain degree, but there's some cost to it, especially later as an adult, and life's different. It's not the scenario that we were when we were kids growing up, and we have a lot more choices and a lot more resources. So it's, in a nutshell, a way of accessing that part and allowing that part to grow up to present age with that access of the core state too, which we haven't talked about, but that's another important element to it. Is that accessing the going deep beyond all the layers of the cast or whatever it is to the true self, you might say, or the core of who I am and at a being sense, So it's all about accessing greater sense of being and presence, and perhaps you could talk to your experience about it.
Well, the thing that I'm loving about this model, just in the first day, is how tight the sort of logical level, the way your mother use logical levels to sort of chunk up, come back down, bring the resource back down the levels, is just, I mean, it's so solid and tight. It's amazing what you start out with and then what you get to. Like some people were saying, you know, they started out with like needing to get shit done, and then it turns out they want love or something like that. And that was kind of similar to my experience. I started out with negative thinking. I wanted to overcome negative thinking, and it turned out really what I wanted was a deep sense of love. And when we were going up the levels, and I realized, because when you were bringing me back down, we found there was love, and when he was bringing me back down the levels, I realized that this still was a love that felt like it could be taken from me. So it wasn't the deepest sense of love that I needed to get to. And so there was some resistance that came up for me, and you were able to like help me overcome that resistance and go even deeper. And when I went deeper, I remember hearing a voice saying, "Are you ready for this?" And then it said, "You are ready for this." And I just felt like I just had to allow it, and as soon as I allowed it, like this surge of energy just went through my body, and I started to sweat even, and I like had to kind of sit back and take some deep breaths. It was extremely intense.
Yeah, it was visible from
I'm
the
sure
outside.
It was. Yeah, we're having a really fun time at Core Transformation. Wish you were here, and we'll hope to have you back. Maybe you'll teach something else, or maybe you'll teach Core Transformation again, but we're having a blast this weekend doing this workshop.
Yeah. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Check out our website, nlp-gym.com. Follow us on Facebook for real-time updates on free practice sessions and upcoming workshops. Also, if you like this video, please click like right down here. And if you have a comment or even a question, please leave that right down below as well. I will definitely get back to you. Take care. Using NLP to transform yourself. Stay tuned. I think something better than that.
It could be. So my mom recently wrote an article that was kind of talking about I'll just say this, I don't know if this is going to be helpful or not, but how a lot of NLP techniques are useful, but they're sort of like putting a cast on an injury, as opposed to Core Transformation is more about like taking the cast off. So it's like about removing layers that are already there, as opposed to like creating a new layer to solve a problem. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's like it's kind of in some ways, it's the process itself works in a sort of a fundamentally a little bit different way.
Okay.